Hello everyone, this is very surreal to say, but welcome back to Obscure and Lost Console Games. 2 full years after I published the last part of this series. Yes, last part of this series was posted back in May of 2022, and a lot has gone down since then. But I figure it will be a proper time to revive this series, since I had a lot of fun doing it back in 2022, and it is time to bring it back from the dead. This is part 6, and hopefully it won't take another 2 years until the next part of this series. I'm trying to get back into the field of making content, so I hope you guys enjoy whatever I put out on this channel. And as always, a big thank you to Unseen64 for providing the information to these games. Bonk is a platformer made by Hudson, who are better known for developing such games as the Mario Party series, and also for games such as Adventure Island. It is also the namesake of the protagonist, a bald kid that can transform and perform different tricks depending on which type of food he eats. I streamed Super Bonk back in 2022, and I gotta say I enjoyed my time with it. But other than that, I haven't played the other games, so I might check them out soon. Either way, this game was always on 8 and 16-bit consoles. It never made the transition to 3D, although that would have changed during the mid-90s when the Nintendo 64 was released, and many IPs will make the jump into the fascinating world of 3D, and Bonk was among those properties. Hudson had a good relationship with Nintendo back then, and helped develop titles such as Dual Heroes, Bomberman 64, and the already mentioned Mario Party games. In 1995, Hudson, in cooperation with AI Studio, which is not an AI-generated studio by the way, were planning on developing and releasing a Bonk game for the N64, tentatively titled Ultra Genjin. It would have been the first 3D game in the series. Unfortunately, the development team was still not used to creating 3D platforming games, and were unsure as to how to develop a new version of Bonk without implementing its characteristic 2D design into 3D graphics, ultimately leading to the cancellation on the project to focus on other titles. Although I feel the concept for a 3D version of this kind of game will not have been difficult. They could just have pulled a Kirby 64 or a Klonoa and make it 3D but with a side-scrolling fashion. I feel that would have worked honestly. But that didn't mean it was all lost, as AI Studio took the early work they have done on Bonk 64 and applied it to Bomberman Hero, which got released in 1998. According to Shoyuchi Yoshikawa, who helped develop some of the Bonk games, nobody really knew how to make the transition from 2D to 3D at the time, and after some trial and error, the design for Bonk 64 ended up as Bomberman Hero. These images are the only remaining documents of what Bonk 64 or Ultra Genjin would have been like, which doesn't say a lot since it's really just a 3D model of the main character. Either way, it's a bummer this got canned. This next one is a bit of a mysterious one, as there is not really much information about it other than the title and some screenshots from a magazine, and I'm talking about a console Game Boy RPG called Metro Panic, or Nichibutsu RPG, which by the way, Nichibutsu was the name of the developer, and their name would subsequently change to Nihon Busan. Apparently, this was an RPG centered around metros, subways, those kinds of things, and it is speculated it would have been related to Nichibutsu 2 Panic, made by the same developer, and what is to be said the first 3D game developed back in 1984, which really just means it used tubular vortex levels. But it is also said it's just a similar title because they already had a copyright for it. Once again, there is not a lot of info on this title, but here's a translation of what the Japanese magazine the screenshots for the game were found in have to say about it. A thrilling and suspense chase over Tokyo subway. This is also a Game Boy, but the title has been discontinued. The stage is a complicated Tokyo subway. Children who come to play from the countryside get lost on the Tokyo subway. Players act as runners or chasers. Runners find the children and get away to the target station. Chasers will help you chase it. As a rule, it seems to be something like a tag game. Of course, it seems that communication battle was also possible. You can confirm that the actual route and station name appear in the screen picture. According to the description, it seems that there was also a mode that can actually search the subway map. Was it a problem that Tokyo Local was? I do not know if I did not get a Southway permit. It is a pity that it has been discontinued for interesting content as a plan. Kind of a poorly translated description, I know, but I suppose that's better than nothing. Also, I have no idea how you could make an RPG centered around metros out of all things, but I guess you can always shoot your shot and see where it lands. This next one is pretty interesting, because instead of being a console game, it may have been a game that didn't exist at all. The King of Cosplays was a quote-unquote console RPG that may have been in development around 1999 to 2000 by Bcom, and to be published by SNK for the very rare and obscure handheld console, the Neo Geo Pocket. If you don't know about this console and its successor, the Neo Geo Pocket Color, those were essentially a Game Boy competitor, which had some SNK titles watered down to a pocket edition. The best examples out of this being the King of Fighters R1 and R2, which were based off of King of Fighters 97 and 98 respectively, and features more cartoonish versions of the characters in order for them to look more distinguishable in the game. Anyway, back to this alleged console game. Not a lot is known about it, and the only evidence of its existence was on a Korean Game Power magazine from July of 2000. Yeah, not even a Japanese one this time. This article features a description of the game alongside what might be the only picture of it available online. And the concept of this game is basically an RPG where your character gets stronger the more they convincingly cosplay as SNK characters. So, a cosplay RPG? We really went from a Metro RPG to a cosplay RPG in this video. I gotta say, there were really some wacky ideas going on back in the 90s. While the concept was weird, there were some strange titles on the Neo Geo Pocket. Although it is also said this could have been a magazine inside joke, and the game was never actually real. Whether or not this game actually existed is unknown. Fanzuforumu, also known as Fanzform or Fonzform, is a console game planned for the Sega Saturn and developed by Nihon MMI Technology around 1996. It was an action-adventure 3D platformer that would have featured a polar bear with a red scarf as a protagonist, named Adobe Penchadi. This game would have also taken place in a fantasy world inhabited by fairies, in which players could also enjoy many different minigames. From the looks of it, it sounds like a game that would have been similar to stuff like Mario 64 or Banjo Kazooie, which is really awesome, and it makes me upset that we never got this. Although there are some screenshots featured in a Japanese magazine, those seem to be from a pre-rendered mockup instead of the actual game, so we have no idea how it would have actually looked like or played like before its cancellation. Unfortunately, other than that, we don't have much else to go about to figure what the game would have been like, so anyone can draw their own interpretation from these mock-up pics. There's also a short review published by Saturn Fan Magazine that reads the following. The main character, Adobe Pinchadi, is a bear drawn in polygon. The killer manipulates the cartridge, roaming over the field and adventuring into the world of fairy tales. In addition to the main story, you can also enjoy playing with minigames, such as exercises and shooting. I always say that more games like Mario 64 or Banjo Kazooie back in the 90s would have been very much appreciated, as collectathons / 3D platformers are a genre I never get tired of going back to. And the more I discover new ones, the more I feel I can relive a piece of my childhood that I have yet to discover as an adult. So this is an unfortunate loss. So to close off this video, I wanna talk about an actually pretty well-known game that some people may be unaware of, And for those of you who already know about this one, it doesn't hurt to talk about it when the topic of console games comes up, since I feel it's a pretty interesting case anyway. Banjo-Kazooie is one of my favorite games of all time, and a certificate childhood banger for sure. And although a lot of people are familiar with this game and its sequel, Banjo-Tooie, not a lot of people remember the Game Boy Advance title, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge, and if you do, good for you, I salute you. But what many people don't know is that this title was originally going to be on the Game Boy Color, under a different name, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Curse, and had a different storyline and levels that were not present in the GBA title. So, for starters, this game was going to take a few years after the first game, unlike Grunty's Revenge, which took a few months after it. And unlike this game, which was about time travel and Mecha Grunty going to the past in order to prevent Banjo and Kazooie from meeting, this original version was about Mecha Grunty placing curses on Banjo's friends, morphing Kazooie into an evil version of herself, and Bottles into a quote, funny creature, as the game documents describe it. She also manipulates Mumbo Jumbo's mind into making him attack Banjo, and while the two fight, she takes off with Kazooie. After freeing Mumbo from his spell, he falls after trying to chase Grunty, and as a result of this, he smashes his head and develops amnesia, which strokes his memory, but recalls Banjo must collect several magic ingredients in order to relieve Bottles of his condition, whatever that's supposed to be. However, Banjo comes to the realization that he has forgotten his moves since his last adventure, so a new character, Grandpa Mole, which is Bottles' elderly father, helps him recover them. This character will evolve into Bossai in Grunty's Revenge. As for the god levels, we got knowledge of at least two, the first one being labeled Mohendra Banjo, which was a stage set in the ruins of a jungle temple in the Far East. These pictures also let us know this game had the isometric view in mind all along. The second level, Fiery Furnace, is described as a dark industrial themed level filled with machinery and fire hazards. And while Mohindra Banjo is a level that was scrapped very early in development, Fiery Furnace made it very further, even appearing in an early leaked prototype for the GBA title, although largely unfinished. This level would then be scaled down and adapted into a section in the level Freezing Furnace, basically becoming Hellfire Peaks with the ice and fire level concept. There's also other elements not present in the GBA game, such as enemies based around cobras and scorpions, and a cut Bumblebee transformation that appeared in Banjo-Kazooie. There's also some useless transformations that would serve as a joke, like the washing machine in Banjo-Kazooie, which will eventually become an actual transformation in Tooie. These fake transformations include a toaster and a milking machine. There's even game assets that were found for this game, including sprites and designs for UI screens, like a pause menu. But one thing that intrigues me is the fact that these sprites seem to be for a side-scrolling platformer, rather than the isometric one we got. So, perhaps they were just used for cutscenes or a specific section where we had to use side-scroll? Who knows? But overall, this concept seemed really cool, and would have definitely been a really different experience than what Grunty's Revenge ended up being. Needless to say, there aren't actually any gameplay pictures from any build of this version of the game, but with how much information we have from the documents and even some potential visuals, we could give ourselves an idea of what this game could have been like. And although we never got this version, I'm glad they reworked it into the GBA title that we know and love today. So yeah, that's it for this part of Lost and Cancelled titles. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it. It was a thrill to go back for this series. And I'm hoping I can be back to making content more regularly from now on, because it is something I enjoy doing. So if you wanna support me, feel free to subscribe, and also follow me on Twitch where I do streams often and I'm trying to get affiliate for a while now. So feel free to drop by and say hi. But yeah, that's it for me today. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.